If you're going on a cruise, you want to avoid these past mistakes that frequent cruisers have made and regretted. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now, I truly believe that we could learn a lot from other people, and this includes the mistakes that cruisers have made in the past that they wouldn't want to repeat again. Now, these mistakes that I'm going to share with you, some of them you may have heard before, you may have even made them yourself, but others I had never really heard of or thought of before, and it turned out that other people had actually done these things. So definitely this is something that you'll want to avoid. There's even a couple of things that I have done that I kind of put out of my mind. I guess they were a little bit embarrassing, but I am going to share them with you today. Now, before I get started, I did want to mention that if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Now, by the way, I did ask this question in my Lifewell Cruise Facebook community. We have well over 800 answers, and I've picked and pulled out the most common and as well some of the more interesting ones. Now, starting with number one, a big mistake a lot of people say that they made was the wrong cabin choice. Now, in most cases, this has to do with the kind of noises that people did hear from their cruise ship cabin based on the location. So for instance, people who booked cabins that were right underneath the Lido deck or right underneath the Lido buffet, as well people that were right over or right under the theater, right under the disco, right under the kids club. Now, there is a lesson here. It is that when you are choosing a cabin, you want to look for ideally a cabin that is in between, sort of sandwiched between two passenger decks. That's usually going to be your best bet. Now, speaking of cabins, another mistake that many people said that they made had to do with booking an interior cabin. Now, obviously, inside cabins are still good. As long as you're on a cruise, you're still in the right place. But some people said, you know what, when I was younger, I used to book inside cabins thinking that I'm only there to sleep. However, with a little bit of time and some more cruises under my belt, I realized that having that balcony gave me extra space. I really enjoy sitting and reading on my balcony or relaxing on my balcony, and I spend more time in there these days than I would have in the past. Number two, not bringing enough cash on a cruise. Now, cruises are pretty much cash-free environments. At least that's what we're told, because you are using your cruise card or your key card to make any purchases, to get drinks, etc. But what a lot of people said is that in reality, they felt that once they were on the cruise ship, they wanted to tip, in particular, the bartenders. So having some small bills with them to tip the bartenders, or as other people said, instead of tipping $1 each time or $2 each time, whatever amount you wanted to give. And by the way, this is not obligatory, but some people said, you know what I like to do is every couple of days I give a larger amount, or I give a larger amount at the beginning and I give a larger amount at the end. Now, a lot of people had opinions on this, but tipping the bartenders was definitely something that people said, before I went on a cruise, I didn't know I'd want to do this, but once I was on there, I realized how I did. Number three has to do with drinking on a cruise. Now, we'll talk about the drink package in just a minute, but first we need to talk about something that a lot of people said that they did and they regretted, and this was drinking too much on embarkation day. It is always an exciting day when you're embarking, and especially if you do have the drink package. But many people said, oh my goodness, did they ever not feel well after they did that? In fact, many people said they even slept through dinner. They slept in the next morning when they didn't want to. If they had an excursion, they missed it. That was definitely a mistake they regretted. And more than one person also said that the last night of their cruise, they regretted partying a little bit too hard and having a hard time getting off the cruise ship. Now, something that I noticed from one of my very first cruises is it's always a little bit quiet on the last night of the cruise. I wondered why the first time, and of course, now I understand you do have to vacate your cabin by about 8 a.m., so you do want to get your sleep. Now, speaking of drinks, the drink packages are also what some people say have been a mistake. Now, many people said that they took the drink package and found that they were spending their entire cruise trying to get their money's worth. And obviously this is going to depend on every person, because if you don't have a drink package, you may end up spending more than you want to on drinks. But know first how much you typically drink, and if you don't usually drink, at least probably 5 or 6 drinks a day. Check if coffee is included, of course, but if you don't do that, then you probably will want to reevaluate if the drink package is worth it for you. Packing regrets. Now, a lot of people said they absolutely wish they had not overpacked. This is definitely a common mistake. Many people said, you know what, during the day, I lived in a bathing suit. So at least for any Caribbean cruises, Bahamas cruises, if you're going somewhere else and you have a lot of port days, that might be something different. But beyond this, a big mistake that people said that they made was not bringing medication on board. You know what? Colds happen, sicknesses happen. It's not something we want to think about, but it is difficult to buy this on a cruise ship. And as some people said, when they did buy it on a cruise ship, a little bottle of medicine with only 4 doses cost them $18. Now, beyond this, some people said, you know what, I wish I would have brought an antibiotic. I ended up getting strep throat. Or other people said, oh my goodness, I wish I brought an anti-nausea medication or an antacid. So those are all things, as much as we don't want to overpack, you do want to have the medication essentials just in case. Now, one thing that's not often mentioned, but does happen, is people say, you know what, my glasses broke or my sunglasses broke. But especially reading glasses, glasses that you need during your cruise, they broke and they did not have a backup. Now, my husband has learned his lesson on this one, and he always brings his older pair of glasses just in case. Please let me know, by the way, if you wear glasses, if you do this too. Please let me know down in the comments below. Now, I have 2 embarrassing stories that happened to me that are going to be part of this video. So the first one is, well, some people said, you know what I did is I set off the fire alarm in the cabin. Now, in particular, what happened was taking a shower. This person left their shower bathroom door open, and because of all of the steam, it set off a fire alarm. Could you imagine? You're in the shower, the fire alarm goes off, and rushing to the cabin, there is security coming, knocking on the door. You've got to get into a towel. So be careful of this. And by the way, this wasn't just one person. I never heard of this before. Many people said this happened, and it reminded me of the time that I set off a fire alarm while blow drying my hair with a blow dry brush. Yes, I was in a window cabin, an ocean view cabin, so I could not open the balcony to let any of that steam out, and I was blow drying my hair right at the vanity, and right above me was, of course, the smoke alarm. And yes, what happened is all of a sudden the fire alarm went off. It is very loud, by the way. I opened the hallway door to let out some of that steam into the hallway, hoping maybe if I fan it a little bit like you do when you're at home in the kitchen and the fire alarm goes off. Well, to no avail. It didn't make it go off. I did have security come. They had to come into the cabin to check. They were very nice, by the way. It's not the first time that this has happened. And they told me in the future, when I am blow drying my hair, to make sure that I'm not directly under the fire alarm. Booking a cruise during a lesser known school break. And this, of course, is if you are on sort of a mega ship or even a family orientated cruise line. Now, some of the school breaks that we know about, of course, are Christmas and New Year's and summertime and maybe a spring break. But some of the lesser known ones are President's Day, and maybe some people don't think even of Thanksgiving and of Halloween and of Martin Luther King Day, or even of regional school breaks. So look into that when you do book your cruise, especially if you are booking on any of those really popular mainstream lines. Flying into the cruise port on the same day as your cruise. Now, you knew this had to be part of this video, the stories that people tell. First of all, a lot of near misses. People recount stories of being the last ones onto the cruise ship, being very frantic, hoping that they would make it. And one lady who said, oh, she has learned her lesson. It was an $800 per person flight to Bermuda to catch the cruise, and she said she would never fly in the same day as her cruise again. Now, similarly, getting left behind in a cruise protocol, that is honestly my worst nightmare. Please let me know if that is yours too. Now, I think a lot of times we think that this has to do with alcohol or being sort of irresponsible in some way. And basically, no, this lady says, you know what, it really was a disaster. She said, I would never do it again. I would be much more careful. This had to do with staying on ship's time. She thought she had made the right calculations, and she arrived back at the cruise port just as the cruise ship was sailing away. Now, speaking of cruise ports, let's talk excursions and 3 mistakes that people regret. Now, one of them is not booking excursions in advance. Now, people said, you know what, in the past, I used to book maybe 1 excursion in advance. I'd wait till I was on the ship to book other excursions. There was room, but these days, excursions, especially the popular ones, really do book up. So that was a regret. Beyond that, many people said if they were on a port intensive itinerary where there was one port after the other, a big regret was planning ahead and doing too much. So booking excursions day after day after day, especially those long ones, they were exhausted. And I can attest to doing that before. Definitely something I regretted and learned from as well. And the other one was drinking too much on some of those excursions. Now, in our family, we actually have a couple of those stories, but including being in St. Thomas, we had done an excursion. It was to Honeymoon Beach. It was first snorkeling with the turtles, so we didn't drink while we were snorkeling, but after we got back on the boat, we had some rum punch. We went to Honeymoon Beach. It was a lot of fun, and it was nonstop filling up with rum punch. And you know the way rum punch is, it's sweet, and you're thirsty, and you keep drinking. I can tell you, I got back on the ship, and I pretty much almost slept through dinner time. Now, I took a shower and I was okay in the end, but I definitely have learned my lesson. I will watch the rum punch on excursions. Getting sick eating on the islands. Now, this is not something that I would wish for anybody. And on the most part, there are still places that you can eat when you go into the cruise ports of call, but you do want to be careful. Some people said they just had really terrible gastros when they got back, or they got food poisoning on certain islands. So some tips that cruisers did share, because we always want to give the solutions, is they said they would actually ask crew members where they go, or they would ask other cruisers, because some people have already been to that port. You want to eat somewhere that has a good reputation for safety in terms of the food quality. Showing a little more than people wanted to on a cruise. So there have been stories of ladies in flowy dresses walking up the stairs on the pool deck, even on embarkation day. I think sometimes we think that if we're not at sea, it's not very breezy, but it does tend to get very breezy when you're in the embarkation port. So people said their dresses kind of flew right up. You might want to put a little pair of biking shorts or something like that underneath if you have that. Now, as well, some people said they got locked out of their cabin in just their underwear. Maybe they were putting something right outside their cabin, like the room service tray, and they had to go find their cabin attendant to open it. And even people forgetting to put the do not disturb on their cabin door when they were in the shower, only to find that they walked straight out of their shower, not completely dressed, to find the cabin attendant there. Now, I have 2 more, and then I'm going to share with you the one that was universally agreed upon, a definite big mistake. So not ordering coffee through room service in the morning time, especially on port days. Many cruisers said they just didn't realize that they could order coffee and a light breakfast, oftentimes for free. It's complimentary on most cruise lines, and that they could order that instead of having to go to the buffet or even the main dining room, especially if they had an early morning. Almost not boarding the ship because they misplaced their passports. Now, some people said they actually did put their passports in their checked bag. Now, thank goodness, one couple said they were able to actually get the porter to retrieve their passports before it had been put onto the cruise ship. So good thing, they were very, very lucky. And the other ones said that they actually left their passports in the cab on the way over. Now, they were one of the last to disembark because they had to get those back. Thank goodness they did, but it is a lesson for all of us. Keep those passports handy and on you. And last but not least, cruising with the wrong people. Now, in particular, cruising with people who usually cruise with another cruise line, because it turns out that many people said these people are complainers. So you want to really watch this or have a conversation before the cruise. And the other thing was just in general, cruising with anybody who complains a lot, who finds fault in things, who are miserable. We are on vacation. There is nothing to complain about. Now, I'd love to hear from you, whether you're a first-time cruiser and you do have some questions, please leave them down in the comments below. Or if you are an experienced cruiser, even if you have one cruise under your belt, please let me know about the mistakes and the regrets that you have that you would do differently. Now, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye for now and happy cruising.